If you don't know, everyone and their mother has been making Palia videos recently, and as you might also know, I watch a lot of them, as long as they don't have anything to do with money farming. One of these videos, now called Why Do Gamers Hate This Cozy New Game Palia by the creator Clawstorm, there's a link in the description, really jumped out at me, mostly because of the title. You see, I've been known to be a little negative about the game from time to time, and I wanted to see if someone else could adequately explain the reasons why so many people are not happy with Palia in its current state. And the video started with this.
The problem is that the MMO mechanics in this game did something that I don't think the developers were prepared for. It attracted the MMO community. If you didn't already know, the MMO community is one of the most critical and most demanding group of gamers ever to lurk the depths of the internet.
And with that, my hope for this video had fallen completely flat. They support this by looking at the subreddit and Discord and seeing a bunch of people discussing that the bundle discount was fake and therefore illegal, talking about bugs that were and still are there, some of which prevent people from actually doing things in the game, and people asking how to join their friends. There's a lot of negative MMO stuff in there, and don't worry, all of these people were definitely MMO players, just trust him. So since they have not decided to actually properly answer the question that they put forth, I want to do it in their stead. Why do some gamers hate Palia? In order to properly understand this, we need to look back to yesteryear, a time when everyone was excited and the developers actually talked directly to the community. That's right, we're going back to June 3rd of 2021. On that day, the most important things that would come of our entire discussion occurred. The pre-alpha trailer launched, the Discord opened, and we began to hear news about the game Palia. This is also when I made my first video about the game and when this channel took its first steps towards being a news and opinion channel instead of a gameplay one. So I've been there to see all of this. If you want to hear a review of the game, that video from 2 years ago discusses all of the features the devs said were in it at that time, and almost nothing has changed since. And that itself is the first reason why many players quote-unquote hate this game. If you actually read recounts from alpha developers, look at what we were told was in the game 2 years ago, or look at the trailers at these times, you'll notice a severe lack of actual growth when it comes to the gameplay features. And I'm not talking about MMO features, but actual gameplay features. For example, sitting. Also, there was a bug catching net in that thing. And this was the first major issue for people who had been following the game for years by the time it was released. Alongside the announcement trailer, a few articles also came out from companies that were invited to a press event to cover the game. And here are just a few quotes from these. In this case, Palia is being described by its team as a community simulation massively multiplayer online game. Very definitely an MMO. Instead of guilds, you're able to create neighborhoods, or find those you want to join and earn rewards as teams. Players can expect extensive character customization and fashion, and a robust housing system with more than 1,000 decor items. This includes a diverse set of face and skin options, hairstyles that can go on any character, and a flexible fashion system. Players can mix and match different components, customize colors and patterns, and save their favorite outfits. According to its creator, multiplayer is the heart of Palia, and they're hoping to build a welcoming, collaborative environment where you and your friends can complete activities together. The world of Palia sounds like it will be a character unto itself, with a day-night cycle and dynamic weather system that will impact gameplay. They're planning to have proximity voice chat, but only for people you've designated as friends. One really interesting tidbit that I learned during my preview with Palia is that even when players are offline, friends will be able to visit their homes. And do I really need to continue? These were the promises that players were given in June of 2021. And unless the team came out and said something different, which they basically never did, these were what we were led to believe was there around that time or that they were working on. And do you know what they did next? They stopped allowing their devs to answer questions in the Discord, moving to a monthly question and answer system where the team pre-selected what questions they were going to answer, and this happened a lot. What things did players not enjoy, and how are their concerns being addressed? Instead, they talk about areas that they want to improve on that they felt were good, like providing more community-oriented goals, additional content, better support role-playing, tons of UI and accessibility features. But things that players don't enjoy are things like gameplay loops or UI being a complete mess. And they don't specifically call out anything. Accessibility features, like if they said, a small subset of players really hated that the game doesn't work properly with controller and we're working on getting that fixed for the beta, that would be an answer for this question. So there were a ton of problems with the question and answer process. The team wouldn't actually answer many of the questions that they were picking. Members of the community would ask honestly baffling questions at times, which, let's be clear, Singularity 6 would also be the one to pick the questions, so this is on them too. Oh, and despite them setting a monthly goal to answer their 10 questions, they were often late by weeks, if not months, and many times had as few as 5 questions that they actually answered, and answered is in quotes here. And, well, oftentimes they tried to PR speak around stuff that they chose to talk about. And all of this was happening at the same time that their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube were mostly entirely dead. They weren't interacting with their community in any way. They weren't really getting feedback for the game. They were just letting the community wither due to a lack of communication and willingness to engage with people that they were trying to sell their game idea to. I wonder if that sounds familiar. So we have the game promises that weren't met, failed communication, and we haven't even gone over the monetization scheme. You see, we were told that there would be transparency and no scummy tactics when it came to the store. Except that's not what happened. Instead, they played the oldest psychological trick in the book and priced the money obscurity tokens as ever so slightly less than store items as they could. And on the side of transparency, would you like to guess how they responded to this criticism? If you guessed that they didn't, congrats, you win. And this is where I'll go off on a bit of a side trip. Did you know that just recently another game came out in early access? And did you know that they had the exact same monetization problem? Do you want to guess how they responded? If you said that they lowered the prices of the items and refunded people who had already bought them, you would be correct. That's a good job to Wayfinder, not just for fixing something within 24 hours of it actually being brought up as a problem in the community, but for also releasing a long post about all the other concerns that popped up around their honestly disappointing launch. It might be hard to play the game right now, like very hard, the queues are hours long, but at least I respect the team behind it and will probably stick with it for a while. Oh, and they've also said something very important for us all. Early access isn't a crutch. Stop leaning on it, especially the community. On top of all of this, players soon realized that the game didn't really have depth to most of the systems. Several of them didn't even effectively work together in a multiplayer setting, instead forcing their cozy non-competitive players to fight over resources. On top of this, what was in the game effectively became absurd money farms, where players could get around 7,000 to 8,000 gold an hour if they worked really hard at it. And what were the rewards for this? Well, in the game, there are multiple items that cost 25, 50, or even 100,000 gold that every player would want. And they're locking these behind dozens of hours of progress for hardcore players. And then there was the gazebo that was shown off in multiple trailers, which has an effective price of 225,000 gold. And the kicker, there's also a cap on gold of 300,000, meaning that players who want to play just to see those numbers go up can't really do that. Also, good luck saving for things in the future, because again, gold cap. So, by the end of the closed beta, it was already clear to many. There wasn't enough content, there were too many bugs, some of which physically blocked progression, and the game wasn't the multiplayer-focused one that we were promised. So that brings us to when Claustrum actually recorded the footage for his video. You see, at that time, monetization became a hot-button topic. Not because of the prices, but because Wizard Crab, the head of business for the company, had confirmed on Reddit that their illegal cash shop fake bundle scheme stuff was done completely intentionally. Even if they had the best intentions, it was still all illegal and purposefully done. And this was something that didn't exactly fit into the original MMO players are bad narrative that he was pushing. But this wasn't the worst part. You see, two things began happening concurrently at around the same time that this footage was recorded. See, first, several players began reporting a rare housing merger bug where two players would load into the same instant plot for who knows what reasons, something that shouldn't really have happened if all the houses were properly instanced, right? At the same time, modding communities discovered that the game was nearly entirely client-side authenticated, which is how players in New World were able to go completely invincible or crash each other's games remotely, because why not? This opened the game up to all forms of hacking, botting, and modding that should never have been possible in an MMO in the first place, you know, outside of New World. Because we learned decades ago that this was all terrible, terrible decisions. If you don't know how that all culminated, there's currently a game-breaking bug in the game where people can steal your stuff due to the mergers, and there are people running around hacking the game to get materials before you can without you ever knowing they're there. So good job to them. And with all these different problems and honestly much more building up at the same time, Singularity 6 thought that that was the best time to release their entirely new pet feature to the public and lock it behind a cash shop. And to put the cherry on top of this fun first patch, they did everything they could to nerf the ways that players can get gold into the ground. I mean, sure, there were literal memory leaks and game-breaking bugs that the team have yet to even acknowledge, but we better make sure to try to milk those players before even giving them a heads up that we might try to fix things. I'll be honest, there's a lot more in between the lines here that I could have mentioned, but I feel like that's enough of that whole story. I know there are many players who like the game, many who wished they liked the game, and there are many who can't play it because of bugs. On top of that, there are players who are already getting burnt out at the prospect of everything they want to get being pushed further and further off by the silent overlords looking down on them and messing with gold. And the worst part, this didn't even include the community's own hand in creating some of this resentment. Given what we were told to expect the game and what we ended up getting, you think people would be fine with others calling out missing features, the literally illegal cash shop, and the awful implementation of pets. But instead, the community on Discord, and not all of them, but enough that it was a problem, became a cesspool of people bullying and belittling others who had other thoughts on the game from them. And I'll be honest, the mods didn't help this either. Most of those people belittling are, still there, and most of the people being belittled are gone. So good job, mods. So this whole divide in the community continues to grow wider and wider, which honestly doesn't help the game either, and this could have been solved with better moderation and, all of that. That, everyone out there who cares to listen, is why many gamers hate the game. You might have noticed something about these reasons. Very few of them have to do with the actual game, but instead things that the over 150 employee company with $49 million in funding for the game and 5 years of development time have just refused to do. Much of this could have been solved with regular communication between the actual developers and the community, like I said a year ago. More of it could have been solved if the devs actually acknowledged that they were listening to players instead of pushing out the most tone-deaf first patch that I've ever seen in a game. And lastly, the final bit that could have probably solved most of this is if the team of Singularity 6 decided to actually work on features for the game rather than increasing their team size by over 200% in the last 2 years without a reliable funding source. Okay, I'm actually done now. Sorry for the rant. These are the people who help make these videos possible. If you want to support me, you can do so using the YouTube join feature, Twitch subs, or my Ko-Fi page if you can find it. I'm not linking that one. Thank you for watching, and I'll do another Palia stream soon.